everyone, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I am here with a recommendation style video and I'm really excited about this one. I feel like I say that in every video, but I especially mean it. I am going to be chatting through a bunch of books that in my opinion will blow your mind. For me, what this means is a really plot-focused book that will keep you guessing from beginning to end and has a satisfying reveal ultimately when you get there. Obviously, this video is going to have no spoilers, but I personally think all of these books will keep you guessing and on the edge of your seat. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. First book I have to talk about is a sci-fi thriller, and that is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. This is a multiverse, multiple lives sort of tale, and essentially follow our main character Kara, who lives in a world where multiple world travel exists, but there's a catch. You cannot travel to a parallel world if your version of yourself there is still alive. For our main character Kara, this is actually not so much of an issue because she has passed away on 372 different versions of her world. This has actually presented Kara an opportunity to kind of move up in society as she's a really sought after world traveler because she can go to so many different versions of their world. However, at the beginning of the book, things begin to get more complicated as it appears the few remaining versions of herself seem to be being killed off without real rhyme or reason. So this begins to make Kara question her current reality, and she kind of has to go digging into these other worlds to figure out what's going on. This is a very intense dystopian sci-fi story that at times has kind of like Mad Max vibes. I personally love multiverse, parallel world travels. I just think as like a topic and as a plot element, it always sort of bends my mind a little bit, and I feel like Micaiah Johnson does an excellent job exploring that and explaining this in such a fascinating way. There's also so many human connections present throughout this story. There's family complications, there's a dash of sapphic romance, but at the heart of this tale, it is a thriller and a mystery and Kara trying to survive, and it's so good, very much a page turner, and again, it'll keep you guessing. Next up is another kind of political thriller with a bit of a magical twist, and that is The Sudden Appearance of Hope by Claire North, who is also the author of The First 15 Lives of Harry August, which is another beautiful kind of dramatic thriller, which I would also really recommend. But this has a classic element to it as well, another thing that I personally really enjoy, and that is Hope starting at the age of 16 has basically disappeared. Basically, once Hope is out of someone's sight lines or eye line, they forget that she exists and that she's even there. Therefore, Hope kind of has a hard time kind of keeping a normal job down, so she kind of has to turn to some unusual means for employment, which inevitably kind of has to make her turn to crime and the international black market to make a living. But let's just say things begin to get a little bit complicated and Hope kind of finds herself in the middle of an international plot. This book is gripping and super twisty. If you've read The First 15 Lives of Harry August, you know Claire North is so good at creating such a fascinating central character with a bizarre quirk that kind of makes them unusual to everyone around them, but has a really intriguing central mystery that keeps you flipping the pages. I loved this book, and if you're looking for something that's like kind of like a darker thriller stepsister to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, check this out. Next up I have nonfiction, and that is Red Notice by Bill Browder. Don't worry, I'm also surprised I'm recommending a financial thriller, but that should just really show how absolutely wild this story was from beginning to end. This is a true story of high finance, murder, and one man's fight for justice. Here's the thing, this is a true story written by the author and his own personal experiences of basically starting a hedge fund or venture capitalist firm in Russia. Take it from someone who really does not have an interest in like investment banking or hedge funds, this was actually really cool. First part of the story is kind of following him as a young professional as he tries to understand and kind of get involved in Eastern European trading, as a lot of the companies kind of transition from being government owned to public owned. So a lot of the story initially is about him like figuring out how it works and setting up various funds, which again was actually super interesting. And then the second half of the story is how those funds, you know, became very successful, and then he became a large target by certain governments over there. I'll say Bill Browder, who, you know, is writing a book about himself, definitely has a bit of flourish some of his writing, and I think if you're able to see kind of past that, what he's talking about is actually super interesting. But yeah, this is about like finance and corruption. It's kind of like the wild, wild west of financial trading. It's one of those like, can't believe this is a real life thing when you're reading it. So yeah, I would recommend this. Definitely very thrilling. Next on my list is a classic fantasy option, and that is The Lies of Lockemora by Scott Lynch. This to me is just a perfect book if you feel like you want to be tricked by the main character the entire time, which for me, I find that to be very satisfying. This basically follows our main character Lamora and his like merry group of men and thieves. They spend their time kind of planning the ultimate heist to trick people out of their wealth and just kind of make people feel like fools. At the beginning of the story, they're basically trying to kick off their biggest heist yet. This involves taking down one of the most powerful gang leaders in the area. This will keep you guessing on every single page. One, it has wonderful camaraderie and humor between Locke and all of the characters present in this, but it's also just a lot of fun and will keep you guessing. I could not tell what was going to happen or what Locke's scheme was throughout this story, and it was great. I love being tricked. I feel like the reveals were always super, super satisfying. This is the first book to a series, and each kind of event within each one, it just kind of grows on itself really, really successfully. It's a heist novel through and through, and if you love heists, if you like thieves, you should definitely read this. Next on my list is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is the first book to a new YA urban fantasy story, and personally just one of the best YA urban fantasy books I've encountered in a long time. This follows our main character Bree, who at the beginning of the story has recently enrolled on a very prestigious kind of high school program on the UNC campus. She decides to pursue this to kind of escape her family home after the recent passing of her mother and not really wanting to confront her grief with her father. However, when she arrives on campus, she basically witnesses a magical attack and discovers that there's a secret society connected to the Knights of the Round Table that are dedicated to kind of saving and protecting humans from these monsters as they appear. She decides to try to infiltrate and join this secret society as she feels like there might be a connection between them and her mother's death. This is a story that honestly has it all. On the surface, it has magic, it has romance, it has a school setting, it's absolutely intriguing, but why, in my opinion, it's mind-blowing is because Tracy Deonn, left and right, is subverting our expectations for not only the Arthurian legend tropes, but also just YA in general. She combines elements of family history and magic throughout this entire tale. It was just so engaging, and just the twists and the turns of this blew me out of the water, blew my mind. I cannot wait for more books in this world. This could be like a 10-book series and a TV show, and I would read and watch it all. I mean, just like the creativity, the thoughtfulness of the story, next level. Next book I'm gonna mention, I'm gonna be brief. One, because I talk about it all the time, but two, I don't want to give anything away, but that is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. If anyone out there has read this book, you know why this book is on this list. In fact, you would know why the entire trilogy is on this list. You read this book and N.K. Jemisin just toys with you left and right. This is a first book to a masterful high fantasy story that's basically set in a world where civilization is constantly ending by natural disasters, and therefore humanity is kind of constructed itself in a way to try to weather and survive this. People kind of live in small communities, there's very established roles. On top of that, there are people with magical abilities that can actually control the tremors of the earth. But instead of being viewed as possible saviors, they're kind of ostracized and controlled by society itself. This is a story that we follow three different perspectives: a young girl who just recently discovered her powers, a young student kind of attending the university to control her powers, and a mother going after her lost daughter. Again, N.K. Jemisin is going to play with you throughout this entire story. To say that this book will blow your mind is an understatement. Read The Fifth Season if you haven't. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. N.K. Jemisin's writing ability is just next level. That's all I'll say. And the last book that's on my list is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is a bizarre necromancer-focused story set in space. This is on this list because to me, this is one of the most unique books I've personally ever encountered. I went in expecting one thing and got something entirely different, and I loved every single second of it. You basically follow your main character, Gideon the Ninth, who lives on the planet called Ninth House. In this sort of sci-fi world, there's different planets, and each one kind of is controlled by different, like, head necromancer family, and they all have their different types of magic. Ninth House is the most desolate and bizarre one, and she's been trying to escape her entire life. But Harrowhawk has prevented her escape her entire life. They're arch nemesis, they hate each other. At the beginning of the story, Harrowhawk is given the opportunity to kind of travel to this desolate planet to partake in a political competition to become like a very powerful individual. And she views this as an opportunity to get Ninth House back into a prestigious viewpoint from everyone else. But to do this, she needs like a swordsman to come with her. Enter Gideon, they make an agreement, they travel to this planet, and so begins what you think is going to be just like a classic sci-fi story, but turns into like a weird horror, murder mystery whodunit with some of the most bizarre reveals of all time, great combat, great character banter. It's weird. I love it so much. I personally want to read the sequel very soon, but to me this was just so unusual and the reveals so satisfying. I could not guess anything from beginning to end. It's like a space thriller, Agatha Christie. I don't know, it's so interesting and I loved it. Alrighty guys, those are a selection of books that I personally think if you read them, they will blow your mind. Please let me know down below some recommendations that you may have, as I'm always looking to add things to my shelf here. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will see you soon with another one soon.